guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine. I have started vlogging directly after the brutal Russian invasion of my free and independent country, Ukraine. I am not a military expert or a politician, but I am a professional Ukrainian. Because I stay in my country during these challenging times, I know a lot about our history and culture, and I love sharing this expertise with you. So if there are things you want to know about Ukraine and you support my country, please subscribe. And today I want to speak about one truly funny topic, and that is an interview of Peskov, who is a spokesperson for Putin. And in that interview, he said that one of the aims of special military operations in Ukraine is achieved, and that is total demilitarization of Ukraine. Once again, as I see the main feature of my vlogs, their subjectivity, I will demonstrate you the fake demilitarization but actual militarization of my country on the example of my own life. A year and a half ago, I cannot imagine myself having a vlog, War in Ukraine. I cannot imagine knowing that much about different kinds of weapons, strategies of war, and how unpredictable everything is. My experience is definitely unique and the one I wouldn't like to share with people who live in normal environment, but I have no other choice. Just to conclude that in comparison to February 2022, today Ukraine is an extremely militarized country. But what did Putin's spokesperson say? Well, first he said that at the moment of the start of brutal Russian invasion, which they continue naming special military operation, Ukraine was very militarized. Which is not the truth, because actually we seriously lacked weapons and the majority of them were outdated Soviet remains. Because, once again, Ukraine was extremely demilitarized after the fall of the Soviet Union and up to the Russian invasion. One of the reasons, Russian tactics, because they actually wanted to invade us without weapons, do something similar as they did to Belarus, annex silently, as they managed to do it with Crimea. Also, Peskov claims that they managed to stop Ukrainian NATO cooperation, which has never been that strong as today. And the reaction of Ukrainian politicians, of course, was very vivid, especially our Minister of Foreign Affairs, who said that you cannot sign any agreements with people like Peskov because they live in parallel reality and they say and describe the world the way they want, not the way it is. So, the process of rapid Ukrainian militarization actually started after Russian invasion of Ukraine, first in 2014 and, of course, after their full-scale war against beautiful and independent Ukraine in 2022. According to very modest summaries, we have achieved something an ordinary country will need at least 10 years. But we did not have this 10 years because this war for Ukrainians is an existential war. It is not an invasion for Russia, which has so many territories and still needs more territories to spread its misery. But in contrary for Ukrainians, this is a war for our life, our future, our schools, hospitals, and our freedom. So, what can I say observing people around me and my own life? Number one, there are many more people than before the start of this war who support Ukraine in NATO alliance. NATO is something that we like, we're not always satisfied because we want more weapons, sometimes we want NATO troops in Ukraine, but in general, many people, the majority of Ukrainians want to join NATO. Secondly, before the start of this war, and I often speak about that, I hated everything military. I did not like films about war, I did not like books about war. I did not like military pattern in clothes. I would never buy myself a military t-shirt. I don't know why. Maybe that was premonition, I don't know. But in general, all this military topic was far away from me, and that would be very typical for the majority of Ukrainians. Joining the army was not so popular, and all of the military sphere was something on the periphery of Ukrainian life. But Russians decided to militarize us, and they did it very effectively. Ukrainians have something of warriors in their blood. Look at our history, look at Scythian and Sarmatians, our new episode of Discover Ukraine. Also Cossacks and many other examples, and we had no other choice but to militarize. And now the majority of people in Ukraine, like I would say 99%, support Ukrainian armed forces and their development, understand that Ukraine in the future has to be a military country, something similar to Israel. Why? Because even if Russia collapses, the remains of Russia will border with us. And all problems, all invasions, all problems come from that side to Ukraine. So we have to be prepared. And even after Putin falls and we work with Russian society, it is very likely that in 10, 50 years, they will choose another dictator, as they had Stalin. They liked very cruel Russian tsars. There is something that they have in their DNA, or I don't know, in their mind, in their cultural identity, that makes them produce more and more dictators. So we are never safe to border with Russia. That's why all people in Ukraine realize that they need to be strong, and we need to be militarized. We need additional trainings. We'll need special medical trainings. We need to be prepared, because even after we win, and when we win on our conditions, Russia will remain, and it will remain a threat first to Ukraine, then to the rest of the world. Actually, in many even antique texts, the territory of Ukraine was discovered and was described actually as a shield between the east and west. Not the best part, like not the best choice to be a shield or to be people with a shield, but likely very realistic for Ukraine. Also, we have lots of weapons now, and these weapons are not old Soviet weapons, but modern weapons from NATO countries. And I know lots of names, and not just names, but the meaning of what is HIMARS, what is Leopard, what is Bradley, what is Patriot system, and many, many other beautiful names. And I do know that we need F-16 fighter jets, and that ATACMS systems can save hundreds and thousands of Ukrainian lives, and small children at school know that. They pretty well understand how a Patriot works. People who live on hot war zones, they are super educated, and their experience tells them what kind of explosion is taking place, what kind of jet is flying. And in general, one more thing that brutal Russian invasion resulted in: extreme military experience that all of us have. I mean, ordinary people like me, and of course our soldiers. So let me clarify what I mean by my personal experience. Well, I know how to act in air raid alarm. I know what to do and what not to do when I hear explosions. I am careful about people around me and other stuff that can be found on the streets or elsewhere. And in general, I read a lot, and I know a lot about the behavior when military actions take place in your region. Also, lots of things in my life have changed, starting from storages that I have at home and finishing with how quickly I adapt to electricity shortages, I don't know, no energy, no water, or something like that. Ukrainians know what they will do. And even if Russians will invent another tactics of war against us, it's very likely that in a week or two, Ukrainians will adapt and will survive. And I'm super proud for ourselves in this. And of course, people who live in hot zones, they know even more, and they can recognize like artillery, missiles, is it dangerous, how dangerous that is. And of course, that's why, once again, I do not advise you to travel to Ukraine, because still it is dangerous, and Ukrainians are more trained and they know how to react and not to panic in different situations. And of course, our military. Our military, first of all, received trainings in many corners of the world, and thank you so much for doing that for them. Second, they work with the weapons And they work with the weapons in real conditions, in war conditions that many of even your military professionals did not have a possibility to. And that is good, because these are bad experiences, but we don't have a choice. We protect our land contrary to Russians. So they know how to work with all of these systems, with all of these tanks, with all of these cars. They participate in some improvements made to these weapons. They fight in a very big war. This war is very different to anti-terroristic operations conducted somewhere in the mountains. This resembles more Second World War. And I'm sure that the experience that our Ukrainian soldiers will get and our intelligence service will definitely be useful for future peace and security of the world. And hopefully we will join NATO and we will share that experience with all of you. So to sum it all up, I can tell you that Ukraine, just as me, is 100 more militarized than it was in a month before brutal Russian invasion. And I'm proud of that in such difficult circumstances where we could have disappeared as a nation or became a super strong warrior nation, we have chosen the second option. But of course, it's only possible with your support. And Putin's delirium, Peskov's delirium, Lavrov's delirium only prove one of the rules that we all know. You cannot negotiate with Russia, you cannot sign any agreements with Russia. Why? Because their top political leaders are spreading nonsense, and they can write and sign and speak about whatever they need, even if it has nothing to do with their real plans. So I am sure they feel how militarized we are, especially more than 200,000 of their dead soldiers. But they prefer to paint this totally absurd vision of the world, perhaps to their internal propaganda or something like that. Anyway, thank you so much for militarizing Ukraine, because in these circumstances, this was the only option. Thank you for buying me coffees and becoming my patrons. I value that a lot, and I'm super grateful to each of my friends. Introduce yourself to our merch. There are lots of beautiful t-shirts, caps, cups, and other stuff that can work as perfect conversation starters to those who want to speak about Ukraine. But most importantly, thank you for standing with us in these difficult times. Slava Ukraini!